Substance, not flash, rooted in substance. Today, we talk with our pads. You talk with your helmet, right? Every moment. The Cinderella story is over, man, right? They're fighting for clicks, we're fighting for wins. There's a difference, right? There's a
Hey, look guys, this game is all about what we do. It's all about us just like it's been all year long. Alright, so you gotta focus and
right? There's a difference, right? This game ain't gonna be played in Hollywood, it's gonna be played on the grass, right? It's gonna be played on the grass. Let's go.
Hey, look guys, this game is all about what we do. It's all about us just like it's been all year long. Alright, so you gotta focus and not get the external factors have any factor on how you focus in this game. You wanna focus on the things that have made us good all year long, which is discipline to execute and do your job, play with relentless effort and toughness for 60 minutes in the game, no matter what the circumstance in the game is, and an intensity that they can't match. Now you guys talk about respect all the time. Like Kirby says, we ain't what we used to be. Well, by God, I want to prove something different. I don't want to see a smile on that face after the game. And the other thing is the ultimate disrespect is when somebody takes what's yours. And this is our game. It's our time. And here's a bunch of guys trying to take it from us. So that makes this shit personal. So let's don't be denied what we want. Let's go. Relentless effort for 60 minutes. Dominate on 3. 1, 2, 3. Dominate.
Long before this, he's been holding me. Because it's not about them. This is about us. This has nothing to do with the team that's opposing us. This is about us. This ain't got nothing to do with the naysayers, the unbelievers, the haters, the doubters. This is about us.
it as a first down. They get the ball quickly into space to Rutherford, and here he goes.
Steps away from you. My own, my choices growing through delusion from me.
Good on third down out of the backfield. DJ is pressured and taken down. They got to him. That was strong by Kevin Harris.
saw an example of it on this touchdown pass right here.
And that's a good corner who's on him, Jalen Davis Robinson. And you got to feel good for Brendan Lewis.
Be aware of him throwing the football, though, but I think he's going to run it.
This is Red. Red! Touchdown! Wolfpack's biggest lead, 24-13. Smith again, touchdown, flags. Flags down in the backfield. Left side of your screen, hands up right there, number 8. Okay, going for 2 here.
With a defense that hasn't played their best, but an opportunity to make some plays on this drive.
Fumbled at the goal line, and did he go down? Will they bring that back?
Let's look at the replay.
Let's see if he
drops the football here, and when he picks it up,
no,
his knee is not down.
He was not down.
The kick returner signaled for a fair catch, muffed the ball, and then recovered at the 1 yard line.
Wow. With a shotgun look in the end zone. The handoff is clean. I don't think he got it out. I think it's a safety. It is. It's a safety.
I want to get away. I want to fly away. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I want to get away. I want to fly away. Yeah, yeah. I'm feeling the wave.
Again deep. Again end zone. Sliding catch. SMU takes the timeout.
In the fourth quarter, he's been unguardable.
I wanna get you paid. Oh, you like that? Okay. Bounce right back, go rage. Oh, you like that? Wanna bite that? Wanna fight back? Okay. She turned around and said, I want to get away. I wanna fly away. Yeah, yeah. I want to get away. I wanna fly away. But if I doze on the Lambo, I'm trying to spread my wings. I got a bad little pretty Spanish team from Medellin. I might fly away before she get a wedding ring. But she wanna stay, she told me she'll never leave. Put some feathers on my drip cause I'm fly. Diamond tinkle every time I'm outside. They almost brighter than the stars in her eyes. She an angel like I took her from the sky. I want to get away. I wanna fly away. Yeah, I want to get away. I wanna fly away. Fly with that cab, fly away on that cab. Fly away get you glad, please don't make me mad. Fly away when I smash, fly away with that ass. I want to get away. Players in the room, who flying in you? Players in the room, you just watch the moon. Highest of the high, how you like the view?
Missouri at the moment has walked it off, but there are flags all over the field.
A lot of people want this job, so they think, but I'm the man that's built for this job. Every day, man, we grind. We grind. Don't question us. Don't question who we are, what we do, or how we play. We're Vanderbilt men. Commodores Adrian down.
Ocho, no, he's one play away from getting out of that situation. He was one play away from losing his shirt, too.
Do you know why you got the unsportsmanlike?
No, I don't. The guy ran 40 yards away and dropped a flag. I have no idea.
What is your...
I'd rather him drop it on my feet.
Did you say anything?
Yeah.
No, prior to the flag?
Yeah.
Something that you think warranted an unsportsmanlike?
It's not my judge. Drop it on my feet next time.
Well, he's mad at Coach Kiffin because they had a fumble, and
And that's definitely, he doesn't like that play call selection because when you have moving parts, that has the potential of happening. Rather just hand it off. And then the coverage mistake on the back end on defense. Saul Diggs in that.
Remember the Georgia Southern game, do you? I don't think we had a guy on that field that didn't play in the NFL, and about 4 or 5 of them were first-round draft picks. And I think that team won a national championship, but I'm not sure. And they run through our ass like shit through a tin horn, man, and we could not stop them. Could not stop them.
It's all media bull crap. I can tell you how they feel about it. They don't like it. It's a lack of respect. It's not doing your homework and paying attention to what reality is.
Come after me. I'm a man. I'm 40.
Twitter radio.
Yeah, I give a rat's about Twitter. It's a platform for people that are sitting home throwing an unemployment check, sitting in front of a keyboard.
Augusta and Louisiana. Hold on a second.
Hey guys! Hey! I'm having a press conference, okay? Thank you.
Give that coach across the sideline a vote who he doesn't want to play. It'll start with us. I promise you, he don't want to play us.
There is no such thing as a flop that takes a field for our football team. Just so you know, proud of those men. How easy it would have been to say it's their night. Excuse my language. Spectacular group of men. You go find them, you throw your arms around them, you give them a big kiss on the mouth if you're a girl. Wow, what a game! Ah!
Welcome in to the First and Long College Football Show. 2024 is here, baby! Let's go. I am fired up. That gave me chills about 10 different times. I am so excited to talk some college football with all of you good folks. Welcome in again, as I said, to the First and Long College Football Show. It's our first live show of the year, and we've got some big, big games to talk about. I am your co-host, Marcus. There's your other co-host, Mason. Mason, how are you today? Are you as fired up as I am? I can feel it in the air. It's still pretty hot here in Georgia, but fall's in the air for some reason. I can feel it.
Yeah, I mean, we're 4 sleeps away from we're really less than that when you count the Thursday and Friday games. We're so close, I can taste it. And I'm super excited. The little pregame video you had set up for us, that was my first time watching it. It got me jacked up. I had my volume all the way up. I was jamming some AC/DC for a minute. Really just got me in the mood for this show, and I hope that our audience had a chance to watch that. I hope that you all are as jacked up as we are. This is going to be a really fun show. This is I'm sure a lot of you watched at least one of our other videos. That's why you're here, right? Those are a little bit more edited and a little bit more buttoned up. This is the time to cut loose and be casual. We're gonna just kind of bring it to you real here on the live shows throughout the season. We hope that you all will interact with us in this show, because that's what it's all about. This is where we get to know our fans a little bit better. You guys get to know us a little bit more, and we get to talk some football. Let us know who you're rooting for. I see TriStar in the comments already, repping the GBO. We're pretty high on Tennessee, obviously, this year. I'm sure you saw our preview video, and that's why you're here. So really excited to see what this year brings for us and also for college football. I think it's going to be really, really fun.
Yeah, absolutely. And just so you guys know, look, we play the music on the live show. We don't make any money on it. That takes any money out of the equation for us, because we don't own the rights to this music. We're not very rich men, so we can't just pay the licensing company off like maybe some shows could do if they wanted to. But here, you know what? We're going to do it because we want to get fired up, dude. We're here to have fun. We didn't start this show to make a bunch of money, because if we did, we'd have quit a long time ago. We're here to have fun, guys. We're just a couple of college football fanatics just like you, and that's what these live shows are going to be. With that being said, this is an interactive show. You guys come on the show. I've been telling people in the comment section, and look, I've been known to be a little brash in the comment section. That's what you do on the comment section on YouTube, right? So look, you got a disagreement. You disagree with something we said this week. here's your chance to air your grievance. Come on the air. There is a link in the description of this video. Follow it, okay? Even some Florida fans have been able to figure out how to click the link. So I'm sure that the rest of you can figure that out. And you know, there might be a Florida fan or two in here. I've talked to a few of them today and invited them to come on the show. And if you're one of those people, hit me up in the comment section or come on the show. Let's go. Let's do this thing. But what we're going to do today, we're going to talk about the big matchups for week 1. Everybody knows the big games that we've got going on. UGA, Clemson. We've got Miami at Florida. We've got Notre Dame at Texas A&M. And then we've got USC and LSU facing off on Sunday. Couple other games to keep an eye on, not a ton. We'll kind of go through the schedule and some of the spreads and things like that. We're going to have a betting show on Thursday, guys. If you're a betting person, come hang out with us on Thursday. We'll have a live show. They're much shorter. It'll just be a pretty quick, short show, and we're just talking lines and over-unders and things like that. And we keep track of what we do all year. We keep track of our record, all that good stuff. You know, I had a year over 500 last year, and I'm proud of that. And I think that we're going to surpass that. And I'm 1 for 1. Georgia Tech beat FSU, but more importantly, the under hit, Mason. And I won some money. So if you like winning money, come hang out with us. I can't guarantee, 75% winnings or anything like that, but I was over 500 last year. I'm doing it again this year. Let's do this thing. We're going to talk injury updates. We're going to talk about what happened in that Georgia Tech and Florida State game a little bit. We're going to talk about the SMU game. SMU got so very lucky. They had a horseshoe up their butt, pun intended, right? They're the Mustangs, if you don't know. And we'll kind of talk about Florida State as well. I want to talk about Florida State and what this kind of means for the ACC and things like that. Thank you all so much for tuning in. Mason, let's jump into it, dude. Let's talk UGA versus Clemson. Georgia is hanging right there at 13.5-point favorites in this game. I looked again before we started today. 13.5 points. Over-under set at 49. My thoughts haven't changed on this a whole lot. We've had commenters, that I actually had one commenter today, Mason, tell me that this is the best and deepest Clemson defensive line that they've ever had. Do you believe that, Mason?
That's what a Florida State fan said?
No,
I'm sorry, that's what a Clemson fan said? Sorry, I was pulling these slides up. Okay. No, I disagree completely. Pretty good on the edges. I don't like what they have up the middle, and they're decent at linebacker. I like Barrett Carter a lot. I think Sammy Brown might be the best linebacker that they have, and he's a true freshman. But as a Georgia fan, I don't see anybody on this defensive line that I'm looking at and wondering if we can handle them. You know what I mean? And I mean, we can't exactly compare Clemson to Georgia all season long. They're an ACC team. They'll be compared to ACC teams. That being said, I think Miami, if you want to look in their own conference, Miami's got a much better defensive line than Clemson, and they're deeper. So yeah. I don't know where that's coming from. If you're that Clemson fan, raise your hand, please, because we'd like to talk with you.
Well, I invited this person onto the show, and I was hoping that they would show up. But look, I mean, just to kind of further talk about, I mean, I when you guys put something in the comment section and say that I'm wrong, I'm going to go back and check because there's a chance I am wrong. I mean, let's be real. I've been wrong before. I thought Georgia was going to beat South Carolina in 2017. So I have been wrong before.
2019.
2019, excuse me.
You stand corrected.
You knew what I meant. I've had a couple of cold ones. I told you I'm jacked up, dude.
Oh Lord.
So look, you got TJ Parker there at that left side defensive end, and you've got Peter Woods, who's the sophomore. And look, guys, Peter Woods is going to be a really, really good piece on this Clemson defensive line. Do not get me wrong. And he's somebody that Georgia has got to be accounting for. Now, what tackles he going to be matched up on? That'll be interesting, for me to see. Is Peter Woods is Ernest Green matched up on Peter Woods? That's what I want to know. And if so, and I'm a Georgia fan, which I am, by the way, I'm not too worried. I'm not too worried. Now, when I see Peter Woods lining up maybe on Xavier Truss, that might be a little bit of a different story. And guys, if you don't know, Peter Woods is a guy that played on the interior of the defensive line last year for Clemson and now is moving out to the defensive end spot. And I'm sure we'll kind of rotate back and forth. But your two defensive ends, you've got two sophomores projected to start there. And you lost a lot on this defensive line, guys. And look, some of you Clemson fans, maybe you know that. Maybe you don't. But I'm just trying to exacerbate, my point here. The defensive line lost some big talent last year. You lost Tyler Davis, Rook O. I'm not even going to try to pronounce his last name, or Hora. Yeah, I said I wasn't going to do it, and I did it anyway. But they're both off to the NFL. Xavier Thomas, Justin Muscall, they're gone from the program. They graduated out. So you're looking for DeMonte Capehart, Peyton Page, Trey Williams, those guys to be really major contributors, and that's not deep. That's not. I mean, I don't dislike. I like Peyton Page. I do. I do, and I like Peter Woods. I sure do. But you got to have more than one group, and I'm not grading Clemson on a scale of like Georgia Tech, or if Georgia Tech had those guys, I'd be like, all right, hell yeah. Georgia Tech got a lot better on the defensive line. We're talking about the Clemson Tigers here. So miss me with the whole this is the best defensive line that this team has had. Give me a break. I mean, the mid, 20 teens, there was some unbelievable defensive lines. So I just don't believe that. Now, there was other Clemson fans in the comment section that said this defense is what carried the team last year, and I totally agree with you guys. That's 100% fact. If it wasn't for the defense getting a bunch of turnovers last year, because the offense was giving up the turnovers, I mean, left and right. Every single game, I think, just about, they gave up a turnover last year. Actually, I think it was every game. But my point is, the defense kept this team from being like a 6-win team last year, Mason. So when we talk about the defense was really good, yeah, it saved this team's ass last year. But a lot of those guys are gone. And furthermore, the secondary is certainly something that I've got to keep my eye on. The linebacker room, you're relying on young guys. It seems like, Sammy Brown is going to be a guy. Look, I think he might be ready. He's one of the few freshmen that are probably ready to go. But the linebacker room is okay to me. The secondary is a bit of a liability to me. In this game, Mason, what are some of your keys to victory for Clemson here? If Clemson wants to win this game, what do you think needs to happen for them?
Well, I will say, just going back to the D line real quick, they do have some size on that line. Just going up, looking at the 4 deep at least. You got T.J. Parker at 265. Sure. You got DeMont Capehart at 320 pounds at D tackle. You got Peyton Page at 315 pounds, and then Peter Woods coming off the edge at 315 pounds. That's a lot of size for a D line. How do they manage that size? We don't know. We'll have to see how the pass rush works. But speaking of pass rush, I think you got to get one developed really quickly in this game against Georgia. This is not the game that I think Clemson would prefer to have to start the season. We saw last year with Garrett Riley coming in, and I told you in the offseason that Garrett Riley came over from he comes over from TCU, and which they were just coming off a national championship game, so he comes over late to TCU, doesn't get as much time with this offense. A lot of the wide receivers were hurt during spring ball, so they did not get a chance to really integrate that offense the way that Garrett Riley probably would have liked. They don't have that excuse this year. So how do they're going to have to come out guns blazing against Georgia in order to win this game. And to me, a key to victory for Clemson is that they're not going to be able to rely on field goals to win this game. Georgia's going to score some points, right? If you're getting red zone trips, you got to convert those to touchdowns. Well, you can't be going down and three out of 4 red zone drives, you're kicking a field goal. That's not going to work. I just look at this matchup between Georgia and Clemson, and I don't see an edge anywhere for Clemson to exploit. So you're gonna have to rely a lot on turnovers, maybe a couple trick plays, maybe some fake punts and stuff like that. Dabo's been known to do that. I think that Georgia should be ready for it, but we'll see. And yeah, they're gonna have to make a few plays and get the ball back and do some pretty amazing things, I think, to win this game. I'm not a huge Clemson fan this year. I know some people have them picked to win the ACC. I don't see it. Maybe if they hold Georgia, close at least, I'll kind of change my thought on that. But at this point, I'm not seeing it on paper. I don't know any way that this could go where Georgia ends up losing this game unless they just come out and lay a big old egg, and I don't see that happening. I do think it'll be a low scoring game, but I don't see many ways for Clemson to come in and win this game. But I see J. Bob Bone dropped a comment asking how much will Gunnar Stockton play this year. I think it's a pretty fitting comment because I don't know about you. I don't know about you, J. Bob. You're probably a Georgia fan. If you know who Gunnar Stockton is, he's the second string quarterback for Georgia. I'm wondering how much he'll play in this game because I think that he will get some snaps in the third and fourth quarter of this game. But yeah, that's how I feel about this one. I don't know. Maybe you got some insight that I'm not seeing, but I just don't really see a way that Clemson can win this game. I could see them beating the spread, obviously, but I don't see many paths to victory for Clemson.
Yeah, I mean, look, here's some of my keys to this game in my honest, humble opinion here as just a good old Georgia boy. How do the wide receivers perform against Clemson secondary? That's a big question for me in this game, and something that I think is going to dictate. I think Georgia wins this game regardless of if the wide receivers show out or they have, an average day. But how bad Georgia beats Clemson, I think, really depends on what wide receivers show up, and I literally mean which ones show up. Colby Young is battling a hamstring injury. Is he playing? Because if he's playing, I feel like the mix of the different body sizes and the talents that the Georgia wide receiver room possesses, I think they all kind of one hand feeds the other. I feel like he might be the straw that stirs the drink this year for this wide receiver room. And if he's not healthy and he's not playing, and guys,
I did hear Kirby came out and said that he's been practicing all week. He's been fully practicing all week. It sounds like he's ready to go, which is good, but I'm still a little bit concerned because it is a hamstring and he is a wide receiver that relies on his legs.
Yeah, well, and here's another reason I'm concerned, and kind of a point that I was getting to with some of these guys that are either out for injury or possibly out for a suspension for Georgia. This is a big story, guys. Kirby is very tight-lipped about who's out for what reasons, blah, blah, blah. You almost can never get a straight answer out of this guy as far as who's injured, who's ready. Kirby has every right and 100% has the wherewithal to say, oh, yeah, Colby Young's ready to go for the game. And then Colby Young never plays a snap, and Kirby will be just fine with that. He does not mind telling the press one thing and then something else happening. He will use the press to his advantage 100%. So there should be an injury list in college football. That's something that a lot of people are pushing for, especially whenever you get so many people betting on the games. I think it's kind of ridiculous, in my opinion, that they don't have an injured list, kind of like the NFL. But continuing with some of my keys to victory here, UGA's wide receivers versus Clemson secondary. This isn't a great Clemson secondary. I mean, you lose veterans Nate Wiggins, Sheridan Jones. Makuba is gone from safety. That was a really good piece that goes over to Texas now. I mean, you really, really wish you could have held on to him. Started 31 games in his college career. You bring back R.J. Mickens. What are you going to get out of him this year? I mean, you're hoping for some serious production, right?
You know how I feel about those graduates playing Mark.
He's
I
played
don't
in
know.
47 games, Mason. So I know what that means.
Probably
you don't
just
like
a guy.
Probably just a guy. I mean, if you've been in that many games and you haven't been, noticed by the NFL at this point, or made your way on at this point, then you're probably just a guy, and nothing wrong with that. It just is what it is. Tyler Venables, Kylan Griffin, Sherrod Koval, those are your guys at safety there. I'm just, I'm not in love with that. I'm not in love with that. Now, this defense did get a lot of turnovers, and if they get 2 or 3 turnovers in this game, Mason, that I'm not just talking secondary, I'm talking defense overall. I think that would be a big, big help to this Clemson defense, obviously, and Clemson in general in this game. UGA's defensive line versus the Clemson game. Got to slow Moffa down, because if Georgia can make Clemson one-dimensional and say, all right, we're going to make Cade Klubnik beat us, we haven't talked about Cade Klubnik enough this week, Mason. You brought him up in our video that we did earlier this week. Go check it out if you haven't seen it yet. I'm not a Cade Klubnik guy, and if you're telling me that Georgia can make Clemson one-dimensional, stop the run, and put the game in his hands, then I feel really, really good about Georgia getting a couple of turnovers in this game, because that's not the type of quarterback this guy is. It's not going to take over the game. For Clemson, the Clemson wide receivers, it's been something that's been talked about for years, guys. Okay, something that's been talked about for years. You're going to be down one guy, Troy Stellato. He's questionable, so he might be back, but I'm who knows? Who knows at this point? So we'll just kind of have to wait and see on him. But that's a guy that you suspected was going to play a role in your wide receiver room for sure. But those other wide receivers, what can they do? I mean, this is a group. We lost Bo Collins from last year. Was one of your best go-to guys, over 500 yards receiving in an offense that was not good. So I had a Clemson fan today tell me in the comment section that Bo Collins wasn't any good. They got better because he left. No, you didn't. No, you didn't. I'm here to tell you right now. Guys, don't sit there and say somebody sucks just because they transferred from your team. Give me an absolute break. Miss me with that. That's absolutely not true. Bo Collins he had over 500 yards last year. I promise you, in that offense, that's a modern freaking miracle from last year. Clemson's offensive line versus Georgia's UGA front seven. I haven't heard a whole lot of Clemson. I've heard Clemson fans say, you're dead wrong on the defensive line. This is a really good defensive line. You should be talking about the offensive line. So I'm going to take their word for it. I think that this offensive line from last year, you returned a lot of guys, but I wouldn't say that this was some kind of all-star group here on the offensive line. You return Tristan Lee, Marcus Tate, Walker Parks, Blake Miller, guys that probably sound familiar to Clemson people, but not exactly familiar to people of other teams. Excuse me, guys. Tell me what you think in the comment section, guys, about this Georgia-Clemson game. Mason, you got anything else on it before we move over to Miami at Florida?
No, I mean, obviously y'all can tell where we're leaning. I think Georgia wins this game. I think they cover. I've got the under hitting, but I'm not super confident in that. This could be another Georgia-Oregon battle from a couple years ago, where Georgia put up 49 and would basically beat this over under on their own. I'm not ready to bet on that, but I do think that Georgia wins by at least three touchdowns. And maybe I'm just a homer. I don't know. I'm pretty locked into Georgia this year, and I feel like they've got the horses to absolutely mollywop Clemson in Week 1.
I think so too, Mason. I think Georgia's in pretty good shape. Jesus Saves says, yo. What's up, brother? Welcome to the First and Long College Football Show. Let's talk Miami at Florida. Just started getting some comments on this video that we did earlier this week about this video. Had some optimism from some Florida fans, which is rare, guys. That's rare these days. It was an older gentleman. He referenced something from 1970 something. If you're watching, thank you so much. He says that this Florida team is better than the last few years, Mason. I'm not sold on that. And furthermore, if this Florida team is better, it's going to be really, really hard to tell because the schedule is absolutely stinking brutal this season. So, guys, if Florida doesn't win this first game of the year here, the pressure was already on. It's really on now. I mean, it's really, really going to be on. Billy Napier is on the hottest seat in America, and he's got the hardest schedule in America. The hardest schedule I think I've ever seen. Now, we learned something as Georgia fans last year. Just because your schedule looks like something at the beginning of the season doesn't mean that it's actually going to end up that way. So some of these teams may end up kind of slipping and not being, as good as what we thought or whatever, and there'll probably be a team or two that's better than what we thought on their schedule. But for all intents and purposes, man, this is the hardest schedule I've ever seen. Look, we talked about this. Florida lost a ton in the secondary. Montrell Johnson, questionable whether he's going to play. That's got to be your go-to guy there on offense, right? Graham Mertz is not a guy that's going to throw the game on his back. And furthermore, who's he going to throw the ball to? Eugene Wilson is nice. Don't get me wrong. I like Eugene Wilson, but who else you got? And also, Mason, I mean, in addition to Montrell Johnson being hurt, Jaquavian Frazier's out. Andy Jean out. Tank Hawkins, questionable with a shoulder injury. So not only do you not have studded talent, you don't have any depth at this point in the season. So I'm struggling to figure out how Florida is going to be able to move the ball against Miami at all. That's kind of where I'm at with this thing. Is it DJ Lagway? Is that the secret weapon here? Because if it is, Florida is absolutely done for in this one. Because I'm telling you right now, this is a star-studded cast that Miami brings into the swamp there at Ben Hill Griffin Stadium, and they will stomp that butt if they get the opportunity. And correct me if I'm wrong, guys. Has Miami or haven't they been really, really good at the beginning of the seasons? They stomped Texas A&M to start the year last year. I can't remember what game it was the year before. Seems like they always start out really, really hot. I like Miami big in this one. I'm sticking by my guns. That was my prediction earlier this week. I'm sticking to it, man. -2.5. Give me the minus the points. I think Miami runs away with this thing. We can talk some keys to victory for each team here, but what are your thoughts on this game?
Well, I'm anxious to see what this Miami pass rush is going to look like. For my money, this is one of the best defensive lines in the country. They are very deep. They've got a lot of top-end talent. And Florida, in the past few seasons, we'll see what they put on the field this year, but their offensive lines have been pretty bad. And I don't think that they did enough to mitigate that this year, and I think it's going to show in Week 1 against Miami. I don't know that this is the game. Everybody's ready to see Cam Ward. He's a Heisman hopeful. Yada yada yada. I don't know that this is the game that we see him break out, right? And it's not because of what Florida does or the fact that he's playing in the swamp. It's going to be the toughest environment he's ever played in. I do think that has an effect on him. But I just don't know that he's going to be absolutely ready in Week 1 with this new offense, new players, new receivers. I don't know that this is the game that you predict that he's going to go 300 yards with 3 touchdowns and running one in as well. I don't know that that's necessarily going to be the recipe for success for Miami. And with that, I'm also going to give Florida a little bit give them, talk them up a little bit. I do think that their pass rush is going to be pretty good. I think that they're going to be decent along the defensive line. They have been for a while. They do lose Princely Yu, which is a huge loss. He transfers to Ole Miss. He was their leading pass rusher last season. I think that's a pretty big loss, but I do feel that the culture in Florida is good enough on the defensive line to to really just reload on that scale. So I don't know that this is necessarily the game where you see Miami win by 14 points. I don't know that it's going to be that type of game. I do think it's going to be very low scoring. I like the underplay here a lot because of that. I don't know that Florida is going to be able to score 20 points in this game. I really don't. I don't know that that's necessarily going to happen because Miami's defense, y'all, I'm telling you, is for real. They've got really good linebackers. They've got young linebackers behind them, and then the secondary is a little bit shaky. That is where they could get beat. But I don't know that Graham Mertz and Eugene Wilson alone are going to be able to do it. I think Graham Mertz had a fine year last year. Was actually really extremely productive in comparison to expectations. Absolutely. But is he going to take this game over and win it for Florida in the swamp? I got a hard time buying into that. I do really like Eugene Wilson, but he's not going to be able to do it on his own. If Miami wants to bracket Wilson, I don't have a problem with that. I don't know that there's another dude that Florida can go to when they need a third down play, and Eugene Wilson is getting double teamed. I have a hard time finding any way that Florida moves the chains in this game, especially against that defensive line. They've got a pretty good running game, but Montrell Johnson is going to be hurt, right? I don't know that he's going in this game at all. And there's running back depth issues because of that. There's running back depth issues with him playing, so obviously taking him out is very concerning. I like Shamar James as a linebacker for Florida, but they lost a lot on defense. You go back and look at their return in production, and it's almost non-existent. I mean, there's just a lot to not like about Florida. And it's weird. I keep hearing all these talking heads on YouTube, ESPN, whatever, saying, "Hey, Florida's not a bad team, y'all. Even though they might just win 6 or 7 games this year, or 5 or 6, depending on where you lean, that doesn't make them a bad game. They're victims of a tough schedule." Well, no, they're also pretty bad. Like they're also not that good. Like, two things can be true. We don't have to say, "Oh, well, Florida's got a really tough schedule. Let's grade on a curve." No, well, let's grade based on the plays and the playmakers on the field, and let's see what they do. I don't think it's going to be very pretty, and I just really don't feel good about Napier this year. I think we're talking about potentially a 4 or 5 win team for Florida when it's all said and done, but I definitely don't have them upsetting the Canes this week, even though the game is at the Swamp. That's probably like a 5-point swing towards Florida, but I'm telling you, they don't have the horses. I felt the same way about Florida State and Georgia Tech. I wasn't. Now, we didn't do a preview show, or I wasn't on the preview show for that game. I would not have picked Georgia Tech to just win that game outright, but I told you that game would be close, and I felt pretty good about that. And I say that to say I think I have a pretty good beat on Miami, and I think that they're going to win this game and cover.
I just really like the weapons that Miami brings into this game, Mason. I mean, Xavier Restrepo is going to run wild on the secondary. I mean, there was very little glimmers of good hope, in very, very little good news for this secondary. I mean, you bring back Jason Marshall for Florida, I'm talking. Cormani McClain, he transfers over from Colorado and has talent, but, I mean, it's talent unrealized, right? Asa Turner comes in from Washington. Jameer Grimsley, highly sought-after recruit for sure, but totally unproven. There's just so many young guys that are going to have to be relied on here. Miles Graham in the linebacker room, very talented. Everybody's talking about him, but he's still a very, very young guy. So I'm not sure, how that translates this year. And you bring in Gerald Chapman to come in and fix this defensive line, and he's got his work cut out for him. Cam Jackson, Caleb Banks, they played a lot on that defensive line last year at the end of the season. Do they get 10% better? That's a big, big question. I don't think this team did, specifically well going into the portal and getting defensive linemen. You do bring in Joey Slackman from Penn. How does it translate coming from Penn? I don't know. And not to mention, like I said, Xavier Restrepo, Jacoby George. You bring in Sam Brown. Uh, those are wide receivers I think are just going to be able to run wild. And we're not even mentioning, you know, bringing in Martinez at running back. I mean,
Yeah.
that is such a threat.
That, to me, that's the most interesting aspect to Miami's game against Florida is how does this offensive line block up front? Because they're my pick to be the best O-line in the ACC. I think they got at least 2 all ACC type offensive linemen for Miami. I'm anxious to see how they get after an SEC defensive line, even one as mid, I would say, as Florida's is. If Martinez has a day this week, I think that says a lot about Florida's defensive line and the struggles that they're about to have. Even though I am pretty high on this offensive line for Miami.
Yep, I'm sticking to my guns. I like Miami minus the points there. I predicted earlier this week 42-21. Now, I know there's a lot that can happen to kind of hamper that, but I'm just going to stick to my guns on that. I think Miami's going to dog walk their ass, and I think Cam Ward's going to end up in New York for the Heisman ceremony. That guy's got the it factor. I think Miami's going to be good enough this year. I think the ACC is wide open. We're going to kind of talk about that in a few minutes when we talk about that Georgia Tech and Florida State game that happened in Week 0, where Florida State absolutely just threw up all over their shirt. Totally bad. Totally bad outing there. Let's go to the Saturday night game there at Kyle Field. That's going to be a big one. There's been a lot of talk that's gone on the channel over the last couple of days about this one. Texas A&M fans are completely pissed. They think that there is no way they should be losing this game to Notre Dame. And to that I say, why? I think Texas A&M is going to be a good team. Okay, don't get me wrong. But do you think that Mike Elko has got all his ducks in a row his very first year? I don't know about that. And I'm not saying Notre Dame's going to win the national championship this year, guys. I'm not saying that. But I do think Notre Dame is a really tough team, and specifically I think they're really, really tough on defense. The wild card for Notre Dame for me is the quarterback. How does Riley Leonard come back from injury? How does he carry this team? How does he fit into this offense? Those are the questions I have for Notre Dame. I really don't have any questions about their defense, Mason. I feel really good about it. Defensive line, linebacker room, I feel pretty good. Secondary, I feel great. Especially early in the year when everybody's healthy. Everybody seems healthy for this team at this point. And by the way, Texas A&M minus Ruben Owens, it seems like everybody's healthy as well. Just to kind of give you your injury report before you bet on this game, seems like everybody is pretty much accounted for on these two teams minus Ruben Owens, who is, of course, the running back from Texas A&M, going to be out for the season with the foot injury or knee injury, whatever it was, lower extremity injury. What do you think about this one, Mason? We talked earlier in the week. These teams are eerily similar. Their talents and their skill level, to me, seems really similar. It's no secret Texas A&M has recruited really well over the last few years. They hit the portal hard as hell this past offseason. Did really well there as well. So this roster, I feel like they're very comparable, but I feel like you just got a team in Notre Dame that's probably got their identity a little better put together and a coaching staff that's been working for a few years going into their third full season as the coaching staff there. We felt like they were in a better space than Texas A&M. What are your thoughts on this game? What are some keys to victory for you?
Well, I do think this is going to be a really close game. I could see it going either way. This is being played at Kyle Field, but let's not give Kyle Field so much credit. Like let's not pretend that they haven't lost any games, or that they've been undefeated over at Kyle Field. I mean, they get caught every once in a while, and this is a whole new team. I think, to me, I'm looking at the coaching staff like you cited. I'm looking at the new coaching staff, and though I really like what Texas A&M brings in Mike Elko and his staff, I've got concerns about a week 1 matchup of this magnitude. If this game was in week 2, I would feel probably pretty apt to pick Texas A&M to win and cover. Honestly, I just think that with this being week 1, you're going to have week 1 jitters, right? These players are going to have it. Connor Wegman is back and hopefully 100%. I think he may do some pretty good things. I think he'll have a pretty decent game. But when I look at the matchups, I'm really looking at how Notre Dame's offensive line with some new pieces handles this pass rush and this really stout defensive line for Texas A&M. It's one of the best defensive lines in the SEC, and that is saying a lot. Really like Nick Scourton, not sure how we'll pronounce his name yet, but he comes over from Purdue with 15 tackles for a loss and 10 sacks. Extremely productive against some pretty tough offensive lines in the Big Ten. So I do think that he's the type of guy, him and Shamar Turner both, are the type of guys that could take a ball game over. But I just look at the overall pieces on Notre Dame's defense, and that's what I'm citing. Look, defense is travel, right? And I think that Notre Dame's got a dang good one. Really like what they have up front. It's gonna be extremely tough to run against Howard Cross, who I think is just an absolute playmaker at nose tackle for Notre Dame. Probably should have gone to the NFL last year. Maybe some NIL money had played a role and a factor in his decision to stay with Notre Dame. I'm just not. I have both of these teams going to the playoff, by the way, y'all. I think Texas A&M loses this game and wins all the way up until the Texas game and loses that one. They're 10-2, 7-1 in the SEC. They're going to the playoffs. But in week 1, I don't think they're going to be ready for Notre Dame, who also brings in some new players at some pretty key positions, namely quarterback. I'm not a huge Riley Leonard fan. I'm really not. But this guy's a winner. He's a playmaker. He's a baller. You look at the difference at Duke last season specifically in how much more productive the team was when he was playing, whether he was hurt or not. Like they had him out there hurt playing because he was that dynamic and that effective. Not the best passer. I think that having a better cast around him will certainly help. But speaking of that, I mean, we don't really know the playmakers on the perimeter for Notre Dame either. I think that it's fair to question what they have at wide receiver. But I do really like Mitchell Evans. I think he's gonna have a really good game for Notre Dame this week. And but yeah, I looking at this matchup, I don't really know where Texas A&M is going to score points. That's kind of my biggest question. I don't know that they can effectively run or pass against this defense. Really like the secondary with Xavier Watts and Benjamin Morrison, two of the best cornerbacks in college football, period. And Xavier Watts, I mean, he's the type of guy that can kind of turn the ball game over as well. With his 7 interceptions last year, that was first in the country. Does he end up with a couple more in this game? It's possible. Connor Wegman might as well be a first-year starter with a lot of experience in practice and a few games here or there. But I think he's gonna have a tough time shaking the cobwebs off against such a stout defense. I keep hearing a lot of people pick Texas A&M to win this game and to cover. They're favored for a reason. Again, I do think it's going to be a close game, but a lot of people have this impression of Notre Dame being overrated. We see it all the time. No, Notre Dame's overrated again. They're not going to win this game against Texas A&M. Well, Texas A&M has been overrated for the past 4 years, right? I mean, what have they done, right? Outside of the 2020 season, I don't know. To me, this is a matchup of two very similar, very almost identical teams from a roster standpoint, from the fact that we've got some unknowns at the pass catching rooms, the wide receiving rooms. We've got some unknowns at quarterback. We've got some unknowns at offensive line, really, for both teams, although I would give Texas A&M a slight edge there. And yeah, I'm kind of just making a gut call here in some ways, outside of just relying on this Notre Dame defense to say that I think Notre Dame's a good pick for the money line, and maybe a nice little money line sprinkle for our Thursday show as well. But we'll have to see. I may change my opinion on that, but I don't see how I don't see the horses for Texas A&M on offense to be able to score against Notre Dame, and also I do really like the underplay here as well at 46.5.
Well, I want to explain one thing to everybody. So we had several comments in the comment section over the last couple of days saying, how is this an upset if Notre Dame, because the title of our video was Notre Dame will upset Texas A&M, blah, blah, blah. Excuse me. So everybody said, well, how is it an upset if Notre Dame is ranked higher than Texas A&M? Well, because we're not paying attention to the AP rankings, guys. I'm sorry. The only ranking that matters to us is the first and long college football ranking. And then beyond that, it's Vegas. The people that have money to lose on it. I want to know what their opinion is. Not some AP voters, right? SIA voters. I mean, there's been media. There was a media guy a few years ago voted for Vanderbilt to win the SEC at SEC Media Days, right? So there's some of these guys are nutcases. Okay, so I'm going to trust Vegas. Those lines are set on public perception. This line has moved to -3 Texas A&M. The money is coming in on Texas A&M. I checked it before we started today. At least on betnow.us, it's -3. So here's my key to the game. If Texas A&M is to win this game, they're going to have to be on Riley Leonard's. They're going to have to be on his butt, dude. They're going to have to figure out a way to contain this guy. What do you do? Do you blitz him? I'm legitimately asking. Let me know in the comment section what you think. Do you blitz him? Do you set up a spy? Right? What do you do with this guy? Because really, no matter what, I feel like his ability to run kind of affects your game plan defensively as Texas A&M. You don't want to send these ends Nick Scourton every single time, just to go after the ball. This guy's smart. This is a really smart player, guys. He will figure out what you're doing, and he's going to figure out a way to make a play because he's got that it factor. He really does. So how does the Texas A&M defense get after the quarterback? I think that is really, really important. I think you want to hold him in the pocket. That's what I think. I don't think you want to go trying to, blitz and then you miss him and then you're flushing him out of the pocket. I don't think you want that, personally. I think you'd rather take your chances, put the game in his hands, try to stop the run for sure, but I think you try to put the game in Riley Leonard's hands and make him beat you with his arm. He has not proved that he can necessarily do that. And on the other hand of that, Connor Wegman is going to have to play one hell of a game this weekend. If Texas A&M wants to win this game, all the pressure in the world is going to be on him. 110,000 screaming fans. Connor Wegman's not proven. You all can say what you want to say. I'm not going to believe you. He's not proven yet. I love Connor Wegman. He was a highly sought-after recruit. I love the upside of this guy. I think he's going to be really, really good. But he's unproven at this point. Show me. You're going to have to show me before I'm going to be able to bet on Texas A&M in this spot. We didn't even talk about the coaching staffs. You got one coaching staff in year 3. You got one coaching staff in year 1. One team should be ahead of the other here. I feel like the line is being based on the fact of public perception and the strong bettors in the state of Texas. My goodness, there's a lot of money out there, and they be betting on the games for sure. Anything else on this one, Mason? I'm sticking with my Notre Dame +3. You're giving me more points, right? It's ticking towards the Notre Dame side. I'm fading the public. Give me my +3. If I'm betting Notre Dame, guys, just some betting advice, wait. Just wait. It seems like the number keeps going up. Just keep letting it go up and wait till the end of the week to buy this thing and just keep an eye on it. If it creeps back down a half a point, maybe you decide you want to go buy that half a point back and lay your money down on this thing. But I like it at +3. It may even go to +3.5. And if it does, that half number is going to be big, big. So that's something to keep an eye on this week for sure. Anything else on this one, Mason?
Yeah, I mean, this is one I've of all the picks we made this week, this is the one that I've kind of wavered on more than the others. It is going to be a close matchup. I don't expect it to be a blowout either way. But I'm just going to trust that we're a little bit ahead of where Vegas is right now. I'm not saying we've outsmarted Vegas or anything like that, but Vegas in week 1, more than any other week, really kind of sets the lines based off of public perception, like you said. And so we've done our homework. We've broken down both of these teams. We've spent probably 5 hours on each of these teams, breaking them down and discussing them for you all. We've done our homework so you don't have to. I'm telling you right now, I think Notre Dame's going to win this game. And I felt pretty good about the Florida State game as well. We were right on the money with that one. I'm going to trust in us and trust in our homework and stick with what I know with Notre Dame.
Well, Mason wasn't able to be on our Georgia Tech and Florida State video, but if you guys watched that, I guided you right to the right answer, okay? And everybody was saying we were wrong, guys. We ranked Florida State, and again, we're going to talk about this game here in a minute, so I don't want to go on a long thing here, but I was on the under, and I said if I'm leaning one way or the other on the point spread, I'm leaning Tech plus the points. Guess what happened? I should have bet plus the points. I should have done it. I knew I should have done it. I had the same feeling with Duke versus Clemson last year. Those games were so similar to me, honestly, last season. So I just got the same exact feeling as I did in that game. Let's talk about LSU, USC. This line has had a little bit of movement. So we've seen the over-under tick up to 64.5. I believe it was at 63.5. when we did our show earlier this week. And I want to say it was at -5 for LSU earlier this week, but nevertheless, it is at -4.5 points. I'll go ahead and tell you guys right now, I'm not anything has changed for me on this one as well. I'll explain my takes again. For those of you that didn't, watch our video earlier this week, I get that a lot of you have not had a chance to watch some of that stuff. Hey, and TriStar, I see you in the waiting room. We'll get you on here in just a minute. Give us just a minute to go over this LSU and USC preview real quick. Look, guys, LSU has no defensive line. They bring back a lot of the same guys in the secondary that they had last year. Okay? I'm not buying the secondary. I'm not buying it. Beyond that, Sage Ryan is dealing with a hamstring injury. That's one of your most versatile and best players there in the secondary for LSU. We know what we're getting with USC on offense. Okay? And some of you may say, well, we know what we're getting with LSU on offense as well. Do you?
Yeah, I don't know about that.
I don't think you do, because this is a whole lot different situation that LSU is going into this year. Not saying the offense is going to be bad, guys, but hear me out. LSU's got a really good offensive line. I think that's a lot of the positive outlook for anybody that's looking at LSU's offense. There's a ton of returning guys. We'll see. I think they're really, really good. We'll see how great they are whenever, they've got a pocket passer in Nussmeier. We'll see how that kind of works out. This is a different style quarterback. Mike Denbrock, gone. You've got Joe Sloan and Cortez Hankton calling the plays on offense. What does that mean? What does that mean for, what does that mean for the offense? I don't know. Running back, where are you at? It seems like there was no running back at LSU last year. Like, I can't remember who. Nobody memorable. You got a couple of guys that I like for sure. That I think are decent. But nobody that I'm just absolutely in love with in the backfield. Josh Williams, Caleb Jackson. I do like Josh Williams. Don't get me wrong, but I'm not seeing like a star-studded cast there at the running back room. And then wide receiver room, you got an embarrassment of riches, but it looks like Chris Hilton is battling injury. So, we were kind of at the point earlier this week where we were like, all right, Brian Kelly's saying everybody's going to be back, everybody's going to be healthy, and now I'm hearing that might not be the case for Chris Hilton. He's got a bone bruise, moved from probable to questionable over the last couple of days. So that is something really, really big to take a look at. Mason, what do you see on this one? I'm not going to keep rambling on, but I think the USC secondary has done more to address their issues than LSU has over the offseason. I feel like LSU is doing more of the same. Didn't go get a defensive lineman. They needed one badly. Didn't go get one out of the portal. I feel like the defensive line for USC is a lot better than the LSU defensive line as well. So LSU's I think they probably definitely have a lead in the linebacker room if you want to compare the linebacker rooms. But 2 of the 3 defensive units, I like USC better than I like LSU. And that is really, really, really weird to say. What do you think?
Yeah, to me, if LSU is going to win this ball game, they're going to have to do it up front, right? And I think it's kind of cliche to say, oh, it's the game's won on the line of scrimmage. Like, obviously it is. But LSU has the best unit in this football game, and it's on their offensive line. I do like what they have at running back in Williams, and I really like Caleb Jackson, who's a true sophomore. Had 11 missed tackles on only 31 carries. Over a 33% missed tackle rate. That's extremely good. I think that LSU. I don't want to say they're going to, because they could. I'm kind of with you. I'm leaning USC in this game, but I think if LSU gets the running game going, which rush defense is where USC struggled on their defensive line. They were actually pretty good on pass rush, but for rush defense, that's where they struggled. So if this offensive line, which might be the best in the country for LSU, can open some holes up, get the running game going, that's going to open the pass up. If they can do that, they're going to win this ball game. I'm quite certain that if LSU can rush for, I would say, I think this is going to be a shootout. So I would say you would really need about 150, 180 yards rushing to win this game, because I think that both offenses are going to be around 500 yards total offense. But if you can win the running game, win the yards on the ground, I think that LSU can win this ball game. I'm not as keen on the USC rushing attack. I know they got a Mississippi State transfer who's supposed to be pretty good, but I don't know yet. Coming over from Mississippi State, he wasn't extremely productive or anything like that. So to me, it's a little bit concerning as far as the running game goes. But that's gonna be where this game is won. Which team is gonna run the football more effectively? Both defenses are susceptible to the run. And speaking of defense, another point I kind of thought of recently. Everybody's been talking about how LSU hasn't been DBU in a long time. Well, did you know that LSU for 11 seasons straight here recently had a defensive lineman drafted in the NFL? They don't have that right now, right? So perhaps their defensive line was so good back in the day that it made the DBs look a lot better. I think that that's more realistic than thinking that they were DBU and they haven't been in a while. I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that this defensive line hasn't gotten the pass rush here in recent years that they used to, and maybe that's the reason for their defensive woes is the defensive lineman up front. All right, so enough riding the fence here. I'm gonna pick. For right now, and I may change my pick here come Thursday, because I do think this will be a close matchup as well. But I'm going to pick USC to win this game. I really think that this is going to be a coming out party for Miller Moss and company. Zachariah Branch might be a household name after this. Deuce Robinson might be a household name after this. All eyes are going to be on this game Sunday night. And I think that whoever wins this game is going to have a ton of momentum for the rest of the season.
LSU has had a really hard time on these Labor Day games.
Yes.
I don't know what the deal is. It's not been good. It's not been good. My keys to victory, guys, LSU, can the defensive line somehow get after the quarterback? Right? Gonna have to do that. If you're gonna have to cause some kind of disruption. Help your secondary out. That's the only way you're going to be able to help those guys. Can the LSU secondary get a turnover for this team? I know they can't stop them from passing the ball. We know that. Can they get a turnover? Can they do something? That's something that I'm asking a question, and really I'm asking the same thing of USC's defense. Can you get a turnover? If you can, if a team can get 1 or 2 turnovers in this game, that might be the difference here. Because we talked about whichever team has the ball last is probably going to win this thing. Mason, you talked about USC establishing the run. I don't think they're going to be able to do that, but what I think they can do is use the pass game as an extension of the run game. A lot of short passes behind the line of scrimmage. You're going to have to get really creative. Woody Marks is a great receiving running back. Utilize his skills. I know that Lincoln Riley is going to want to do that. He's an expert at utilizing his playmaker skills on offense. That's what you're going to have to do with Woody Marks. I don't think you're going to be able to hand this guy the ball and expect him to run between the tackles with this offensive line. And I think Lincoln Riley knows that. So I think you're going to have to use an extension of the pass game there, or use the pass game as an extension of the run. And can USC stop the run and create some havoc? If LSU is able to run the football, they're going to win the football game, because that is a strength for LSU versus USC. They do have a little bit of a run game. USC, I feel like, doesn't. So if USC can establish the run, if LSU can establish the run, that makes them a two-headed monster, right? And it's going to be really, really hard for USC's defense that's been kind of just patched together through the transfer portal. It's going to be hard for those guys to really know what's coming if you've got the run game going, the play action, and then get Kyron Jones and all those guys going. Hopefully Chris Hilton is able to get out there and at least play some. Guys, we're going to bring on is that it for you, Mason? And
yeah,
I'm sorry, I totally forgot. I'm taking USC plus the points. Oh, and TriStar just went off. I was about to add you on, TriStar. Get your butt back in here.
He's saying he's got a bad signal in the comments.
Too glitchy. Oh, well, then I appreciate you, TriStar, for not coming on the show because I don't want that. Now, let me tell you something, TriStar. Let me give you a little hint, a little troubleshooting, a little IT here. Turn your camera off, and come on. We're not going to put your camera on the screen anyway. Okay, we were just going to put your audio on. So if you cut your camera off, that'll make it a lot easier on your internet. Give that a whirl. Come back on. We'd love to have you on. Anybody that's watching, come on the show. If you're watching this recorded, come on next week. We want to talk to you. Good, bad, or indifferent. We want to hear from you guys. No doubt about it. Let's kind of go through some of the injury stuff real quick, Mason. That's it on our big games. We're going to go through the other games. We're going to just kind of mention them and just kind of talk about what we're looking to see with some of these teams. Everybody's playing, but not everybody's playing a big game, so we're not going to spend a bunch of time on them. And if you guys want to talk about one in particular, I'd love to talk with you. I know North Carolina, Minnesota is a game that's kind of low key, a decent game for week one. We'll go over that. Let's go through some injury updates. Kentucky fans, Josh Caddis, tight end. It looks like he's ready to play after some injury stuff. I'm gonna talk about some of the guys that are making their way back too, because we've had some guys injured in fall camp and things like that, and looks like they're making their way back for week one. So we'll mention some of those guys as well. Jam Miller back to Kentucky. Hold up, back to Kentucky. You got Josh Caddis, he's back, and then you got Brandon White, the wide receiver. He's going to be out. So we'll just for betting purposes, we'll go through some of these. Jam Miller, undisclosed injury, probable to play. It's interesting that Jam Miller is missing time here in the fall. Not a brand new guy to the program or anything. It is a new system with Kalen DeBoer there at Alabama. So, missing time in the fall, how does that, kind of contribute to things that may go on in the regular season? We're going to have to see. Jam Miller is a guy that offense is really, really going to rely on. Hey, and before we lose him again, let's bring on TriStar onto the show. Our first guest on the First and Long College Football Show. TriStar, how are you, my friend? He's gone. Our first guest was an absolute failure. TriStar,
Just a nibble.
hey, just a nibble. Gosh, it got me excited. I was ready to talk some Tennessee football. That's all right. Look, TriStar, we appreciate you. If you can get a little bit better service or something like that, maybe next week or something, we'd love to have you on. Here was TriStar's last comment there. We were talking about the LSU USC game. I can see this game being 61-60. I'm kind of with him as well. Let's give him one more try. Here is TriStar.
All right.
TriStar, what's up, man?
Okay. Okay, there we go.
I hear you.
Do I sound clear? Do I sound glitchy?
No, you sound great.
Do I sound fine?
Sounds good.
Okay. All right, perfect. Anyways, how y'all doing tonight? I'm sorry because it's kind of glitching on my end because if you don't know, I'm out here in rural East Texas, so signals kind of hit and miss. For some reason, YouTube works fine, and every Twitter and all that works fine, but for some reason, StreamYard's messing with me.
You need a strong signal for this platform, I'll tell you. It's a little tough.
Yeah. See, if I was okay, now you're starting to come in a little bit. Anyway, so if I was at home, I wouldn't be having this problem. If I was back in God's country out there in Polk County,
Hey, I hear you.
Yeah, I understand. So now, okay, which one's which? Because I know both of you. I want to know which one's which.
I'm Marcus.
Yep, and I'm Mason.
Okay. Okay, which one's headlines?
Which one's headlines? What do you mean?
Oh, never mind. I apologize. Anyways, so when it comes to the USC game, I can legit see that one being just so high scoring and there's just no defense because I know everybody right now is high on LSU because, they got Nussmeier, he's a great quarterback, and they still got a lot of dudes on that team, and they brought in Baker, who I think was a good hire, but I just don't expect in year one for it to just immediately click. I think it's going to take him a couple years to get that defense back to where it should be. So, like I said, I can see.
We lost TriStar there. TriStar, hey, I certainly appreciate you. And let's elaborate on that a little bit, Mason, because I agree with a lot of what TriStar's saying there. Look, I like Blake Baker. I really do. I like Blake Baker a lot, guys. He did a good job at Missouri. Missouri had more defensive NFL draft picks, in this past season than they've had in a while. So I think he did a really good job. But he's not a miracle worker. I mean, this isn't Jesus Baker, right? He's not going to touch this defense and heal the deathly diseases that this defense has. This is a problem at the core of this roster. It's not, it's not just a piece away here, a piece away there. What can Blake Baker do to get the talent in there? I don't know. In this age of NIL, it seems like LSU struck out over and over again in the offseason I'm speaking defensive linemen specifically here. There was several guys that LSU was like, oh, we want them, we're going to get them, and they never did. So I'm starting to wonder if LSU thought that they were going to take the approach of, we've had so many great defenses. We've had, this is LSU. We're the Tigers. We can get guys on a discount to come play in this defense and promise playing time, and it's going to work out. Well, it hasn't. It hasn't worked out. And then, as I spoke about earlier in the video that we're doing today and the one we did a couple days ago, this secondary did not go and get better in the transfer portal. I mean, not a whole lot. Just a few pieces here and there. Nothing no guys that we're sitting here talking about saying, "Wow, that was a game changer." You bring back a lot of the same guys, and you cross train a few guys, in that secondary, and you hope that that's going to make a difference. But let me tell you something: if every single one of those guys in that secondary that's coming back is 10% better, they're still going to suck. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
That is what it is. Mason, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I completely agree. I think that's a big reason why my title, I created the title for that video on that preview that we did. I said, this is the battle of two teams that don't play defense, right? I think TriStar is exactly right that that's I think from what TriStar was saying, he's on the over, right? Pretty clearly. Well above the over there if we're talking this game being played in the 60s. And I think that's a pretty safe bet, for my money. I could definitely see this going over, and that may just be a best bet for Thursday night. We'll have to wait and see. And we hope that TriStar can get on Thursday night, and we'll try it again. But yeah, that's kind of my pick. And also, I was thinking maybe we save the injuries for our betting show, and we'll go through that on Thursday, and kind of keep trucking along here with the matchups.
Sure. Mason, do you want to can you pull up some matchups on the screen, or you just want to talk through them? I mean, we can do whatever we want to do. Look, guys, Thursday, this is not. Oh, here we go. I got them listed right here. I'm sorry. Week 0. We saw FSU Georgia Tech. We saw what happened there. I think we're going to see some more crazy stuff going on in week 1. Let's kind of go through the matchups here. Mason, take us through those. You're kind of scrolling through it. How about you lead us through those, and then I'll kind of give you my 2 cents on it.
Yeah, so you see Thursday night. I mean, I'm really interested in all these teams. NC State, I'm excited to see what they do. I think they're a contender in the ACC this year. Keep your eyes on NC State because I do think that's going to be a fun one. No real big matchups, right? But we'll get a taste of some of these teams to see exactly what they're packing in some ways. But Missouri, Kansas, they're all going to be playing on Thursday night. We'll have a little bit of fun with that. I think that we'll get our beaks wet for the weekend. And then you got the lone Friday game, Oklahoma versus Temple. Oklahoma gets a chance as they make their SEC debut, or at least as an SEC team. They, all eyes are going to be on them to see kind of what they're able to put together and what this offense is going to look like with Jackson Arnold. I'll be excited to watch that one. And then we kick things off with some big boys. We got Georgia versus Clemson at noon. Already broke that game down, but also Penn State versus West Virginia, and that was a game that was kind of on the fringe of games that we should talk about. I think that and y'all tell me if I'm wrong in the comments, but I feel like people are a little bit too low on West Virginia and probably a little bit too high on Penn State. Not saying that West Virginia is going to win this game, although I do think that if things fall the right way, they could. But I really like Garrett Green at quarterback, and I don't know that I'll be honest with you, I don't really like Drew Aller at this point at quarterback. I think he's a talented player, but I think that he is being mismanaged at Penn State, and they're not getting the most out of him. That's kind of my opinion on that, but very excited to watch that matchup. Do you have any sort of lean on that game, Mark?
Well, tell me again, Mason. What's the spread on that one?
I don't have it here. We'll see if we can find it.
I've got Bet Now, the old trusty Bet Now pulled up, but I don't have it right. Well, look, Penn State I know is going to be able to run the football really well. I don't foresee defensively this West Virginia team being able to step up. This defense surrendered 38 points or more 4 times last season for West Virginia. I mean, and I think they're going to probably give up some points to Penn State. Now, here's the big matchup. It's the Penn State wide receivers versus this West Virginia secondary. It's really ass and ass here. And I excuse my French, guys, but you've got a bad wide receiver room against a bad secondary. It's a complete rebuild in the secondary for West Virginia. That no fewer than 6 transfers at cornerback alone for West Virginia this past offseason. So your guess is as good as mine as far as what that secondary is going to end up looking like. You bring in some good guys like Aubrey Burks. He's kind of like an all-league caliber, guy at safety there. You bring in a few guys. You're going to kind of rely on some younger guys as well, Zay Jennings. Who wins that battle? Because, again, Penn State has been notorious for, over the last few years anyway, for not having an over-the-top passing game. Drew Aller was taken to the cleaners last year by fans all around the country, saying that it was him, and I don't think it was him, Mason. I don't think it was Drew Aller. I don't think, Drew Aller was the problem here. I think it's scheme. Somebody asked Coach, the old ball coach last year, why don't we air the ball out more? And he was like, you saying that, just kind of makes me sick, to think that we would just throw the ball up and just take a chance. That makes me sick. Well, what do you think a 50-50 ball is, dude? I mean, there's no dudes that make it a 50-50 ball. That's the problem. It's more like a, 30-70 ball with this wide receiver room. So it just seems like a one-trick pony on offense. Can West Virginia's defensive line buck up, right? Can they make a stand? They've got excellent depth. 12 players who saw action last year on that defensive line. Can they slow down the run game? That's going to be the real big question in that one, and going to go a long way in deciding, who. I think Penn State wins no matter what, but how close this game is going to depend on that defensive line for West Virginia stepping up.
Yeah. Yeah, I just think Drew Aller was underutilized last year in the smaller games. You got to give him some opportunities to air the ball out because you're going to need him to do it in the bigger games. And Penn State did not do that. And I said going into those big matchups that he was going to struggle, and he did. It really reared its ugly head. So, but let's keep it moving. We got Iowa.
Real quick. Penn State favored by 8.5 points. Over under set at 51.5 for that one. I don't know. I don't know if I'm betting my money on that one.
Yeah.
But at 51.5, I mean, that might be a little high. That might be a little bit high for this game. I'm thinking more like mid 40s, upper 40s in this one. But I digress. Go ahead, Mason.
Yeah, so Iowa get a chance to see if they've got a pulse on offense. Speaking of offensive woes, I don't see it this year. We didn't have Iowa in our top 25. I think it's for a good reason. We'll have to wait and see. Like what they do on defense, obviously, but I think that Iowa's going to be a pretty bad Big Ten team this year with no divisions going on there. We finally get our first look at Nico Iamaleava, which I know TriStar in the Lone Star State right now, but TriStar is going to be pretty pumped up to watch this, and I will as well. I will be tuning in on a second screen as I'll obviously have Georgia up on the primary, but we'll be watching that, and yeah, to save us from going through every single one of these games, I do think Texas and Colorado State could be kind of fun, but I don't see that being an issue. Oklahoma State and South Dakota State is going to be really fun. I think South Dakota State's a pretty good little ball team. This could be a game going into halftime, and I do think Oklahoma State pulls away, but that's a tough non-con game to start the season off for Oklahoma State. That might be more interesting than people give it credit for. We get Miami and Florida at 3:30. We'll definitely be tuning into that. Kansas State's a team that I've got picked to win the Big 12. Anxious to see what they do against UT Martin. Alabama, Western Kentucky shouldn't have an issue there. And then at 7:30, we've got our really probably the biggest game of the week, I would say, between Texas A&M and Notre Dame. Again, these are two teams that I've got picked to be in the playoffs. Definitely a titanic matchup there between those two programs. Moving on to Oregon, a team that we've got picked to win the Big Ten. I think both of us are on that. Shouldn't have an issue with Idaho, but a fun one to watch nonetheless. And Arizona against New Mexico. New Mexico could be kind of tricky. I don't see Arizona having any issues with them, but I'm not sold on Arizona being a ranked team. I think 21's a bit too high with Jed Fish, taking the Washington job. He leaves Arizona. I think that Arizona is going to struggle this year in the Big 12. And then Sunday, we've got USC and LSU. Obviously, that's going to be a really, really fun gunslinging type of matchup. I can't wait to watch that as a standalone game on Sunday night. Everybody's going to be watching it together. Can't wait to hear kind of what comes out of that, what kind of talking goes on. And then Florida State versus Boston College. All of a sudden, that's a game to watch because Florida State might be pretty bad. So I think Boston College could be kind of either they should be preparing for a butt whooping because Florida State is going to have a little bit of a monkey on their back after a loss to Georgia Tech this past week. But it could be a pretty fun game. Maybe Florida State just is that bad, but I'll be anxious to watch that one too. I didn't have that one circled before we saw Florida State lose to Georgia Tech, but now I'm pretty interested in that game as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you want to let's talk about Georgia Tech and Florida State for a minute? I mean, I listen, all you fans of those teams that are playing nobodies, there's still tons of interest in all those games, and I'm going to have a couple of secondary games going all weekend. I want to see how Tennessee's offense looks. I want to see how Oregon's offense looks. It sounds like Gary Bryant Jr. probably going to be sitting that game out, so we'll kind of get to see some depth in that wide receiver room and just several different things like that. There's tons of storylines, even whenever you're not playing a good team that you want to see out of your team. Let's talk about this Florida State and Georgia Tech game, Mason. We talked about it on the video. Mason was on the road doing some work last week, so I said, look, hey, Mason, I've already done the digging on this thing. Well, let me just do a video. Let me just throw a one-off out there, and let's don't leave the people hanging on a game that might end up being a good one. Well, lo and behold, it was a really, really good one. Georgia Tech really surprised me, though, at their ability to be able to stop the run. I mean, this was a team last year. I'll pull up some of the stats because I think I've got them pretty much on hand right here. This was a team. Excuse me, that's not the right one. Let me see if I can get it pulled up here. But this was a team last year that was just absolutely horrible against the run. I mean, Georgia Tech's offense Georgia Tech's defense was just absolutely terrible. Rush yards per game, 131st, right? Well, guess what? You give up 98 to Florida State. There's where everybody was surprised. You lost a ton of your guys if you're Georgia Tech. You lost a ton of your guys on the defensive line to the transfer portal. Well, so I guess now the argument is, did you lose them? Or was it addition by subtraction, which that saying never made any sense to me, really. But maybe it does here. This defense really, really stepped up. As a guy who lives in Georgia, I don't hate on Georgia Tech. They're no threat to the Georgia Bulldogs. I was rooting for Georgia Tech in this one. Also because me and Mason have been fading Florida State the whole preseason pretty much. And you want to be right. What did you think about this game? Haynes King had some moments. What a tough, gritty guy that guy is. Not some kind of amazing playmaker, but he didn't lose them the ball game. He almost did on that fumbled snap, but he didn't lose them the ball game and made some really great runs that were really pivotal. Him and Jamal Haynes, the couple of wide receivers did their thing. It was a real group effort, but where did that defense come from? And then on another hand of that, the offensive line looked even better than advertised. What did you think about the game?
Yeah, I think that. Well, first of all, little brother went out and got them a win, didn't they, Mark? That was pretty fun to watch. I don't typically root for Georgia Tech, but that was pretty fun to watch, and the way that they did it was great. I mean, we could sit here and bash Florida State and talk about how bad they were and whatnot, but at the same time, I thought that Georgia Tech was very physical up front. I really liked what we saw out of the defense. I really like what we saw out of the play calling from Buster Faulkner and this offense. And I was watching the game and wasn't really thinking about the offensive coordinator. And I was like, man, this kind of looks like a Georgia offense. Like, why does it look so much like a Georgia offense? Well, Buster Faulkner was the offensive coordinator, and he served under Todd Monken as an offensive analyst for 3 years at Georgia and was expected to be the interim offensive coordinator before he ends up taking the Georgia Tech job. So that's why it looked like a Georgia offense. And they ran it very effectively. Look, this is a team that returned 86% of their production in 2024, and that was showing that was glaring, I guess, in this game. They were very efficient. They really won up front on the offensive or on the offensive line and the defensive line, but particularly on the offensive line, I saw them guys making some moves, getting to the second level against a defensive line that some people said was the best in the country. I think it was Pete Thamel who said this is the best defensive line in the country. Well, I can tell you they're not. First of all, Georgia Tech's offensive line is not that good, but secondly, I was still really impressed with what the offensive line did for Georgia Tech, and Jamal Haynes had some good plays. I thought that he did really well. I thought Haynes King did a pretty good job. Made some big third down throws that kept him in the game, and it's kind of a, you would expect that if Georgia Tech won this game, that it would be a perfect storm, and Florida State would make all these mistakes, and Georgia Tech would capitalize on them. And there was a little bit of that. You have to admit there was a little bit of that going on. But when Florida State was pushing down that final drive where they had 2 fourth-down conversions in that drive, and Georgia Tech was still able to win the game, that tells me a lot more about Georgia Tech and what kind of program they've got going on, the culture of that program, and how different it looks, in year 2 with Brent Key, a full year 2 with Brent Key. I think that Georgia Tech is a contender. Look, we told you that Georgia Tech is going to be a game or a team that plays in upset games. Right, and we didn't have to wait very long. They beat a top 10 team, and deserved to with the way that they played in that game. It was very fun to watch, and I think the perfect way to start the 2024 season, because I think that we're going to have a lot of turmoil, a lot of chaos this year, and we started with a banger. It was very exciting to me.
It leaves you with a lot of questions for Florida State, and a lot of questions that we were already asking before the season got started, but I think for a lot of people, it leaves a lot of questions to answer about who's that team to step up in the ACC. Excuse me. It's not Florida State. We knew that to start the season. You and I did. The national media, ESPN, almost everybody picked Florida State. It didn't make any sense to me after everything they lost. And Georgia Tech runs for 190 yards in this game. Average 6.5 yards per play in the game. 5 of 9 on third down. That's better than 50%. That's going to be, that's going to get it done. And you got Florida State, who was 5 of 12 there on third down, 2 of 3 on fourth down. So, you like that, I guess, but you hate that it came down to that. And really, it was first and second down really that killed them, Mason. It wasn't third down. It was getting in third and manageable. This team didn't do a very good job of it. And We asked, what is the wide receiver room going to be like for Florida State after you lose a couple NFL guys? Well, the answer is, guys, you don't just replace guys that go to the NFL at wide receiver. That's not how that works. You don't just snap your fingers and replace them, and that's not the case again this year. So Florida State got a lot of work to do. DJU had some really tough moments to watch, man. I mean, not the, again in DJU's career, the stats are not that bad to look at. They're not like horrible. 19 of 27, 193 yards. But the results are pretty pedestrian, right? No touchdowns, no interceptions. That's good, but just nothing really to write home about. Pretty poor performance for Florida State. You want to talk about SMU for a minute, since we're talking about?
I want to say real quick. I mean, how embarrassing for Florida State though to lose this game after all of the hullabaloo with the ACC that they've had in the offseason, with ESPN that they had in the offseason, with Kirk Herbstreit. I would love to have just watched and talked to Kirk Herbstreit watching this game and feeling like he is redeemed, after this little performance here by Florida State. I thought that I think that the Florida State program owes ESPN an apology for last year because I it was just really fitting in a way with all the fuss that they made and all the crying that they did as a program for them to go out and get beat by an unranked team.
Yeah, it was a real 8 Mile moment, right? On the front of their shirt, it was Mom Spaghetti. They were nervous. Yeah, it's a real Eminem moment, and I feel for the Florida State fans. I do, but at the same time, it's like, everybody was barking all offseason about how this team should have been here, and they should have been there, and blah blah blah. And then get smoked by Georgia, and then they get smoked by Georgia Tech. That's not a good look at all. Let's talk about the SMU game a little bit, Mason. SMU should have lost this game to Nevada, guys. There is no doubt about it. They should have lost this game. Got so lucky. If you watched the intro to this video, if you had the pleasure of doing so, because YouTube's probably going to make us delete it, by the way. If you guys are watching these live shows and you get to see the intro, you're going to have to be here early is what I'm saying. You're going to have to be here like the day of the live show, because YouTube's probably going to make us delete anything that's copyright. But with all that being said, if you watch the intro, you saw the kick return snafu. Did you see that, Mason?
Yeah.
Where Nevada, the guy called for a fair catch and then muffed the kick and then recovered it on the 1 yard line, which makes it a dead ball there on the 1 yard line. It gives SMU a chance to get the safety, which, why the hell is Nevada running shotgun out of their own end zone? What are you doing? Makes absolutely no sense to me. You've got to go under center right there. That is absolutely ridiculous. Give up the safety. Got to punt the ball away. Preston Stone has been reaching for a life raft like a blind man all night, and then he throws a 38-yard dot there at the end of the fourth quarter, and there was a couple more chances for Nevada. That catch right there on the sideline where SMU shoves them out of bounds as the guy catches it, and he's not able to get a foot down, and that really kind of sealed the game. SMU's not near as good as I thought they were, Mason. I mean, I just have to go ahead and throw that out there. Preston Stone had a really hard time. I believe it was the first drive of the game, throws an interception. Not a really good start to the year, obviously, if you're a quarterback. Seemed like he was kind of fighting some mental, thoughts during the game, probably a little bit of negativity. He was having a hard day. He was having a terrible day. Jennings came in and played quarterback some, which was expected. That wasn't, necessarily Stone getting pulled, for Jennings necessarily. But Jennings is out there playing, which tells me this team feels like they've got a shot with him. Preston Stone has a couple more games, where he struggles like that, especially early on. Then SMU may be looking to make some kind of change there at quarterback, but this team's not quite as good as I thought. They've battled a little bit of injury there at the back room. Seemed like they are lacking some depth there for sure. Nevada was a team that won like 2 or 3 games last year, guys. All new players. I'm talking like 30-something new transfer players on this team, all new coaching staff. There's really no excuse for this. SMU may be in for a really, really tough season if that's how they're going to be playing week in and week out. Even if it is in the ACC, they're going to have a really, really hard time.
Yeah, I agree. A terrible performance by them. I don't know where SMU goes at this point. You had the wide receiver kind of pitch a fit and get kicked out of the game. Not a good look for him at all. And I don't know that it's a good look for the culture of SMU. I think that it's fair to question that at this point under Brett Lashley. Not the end of the world. It wasn't an ACC game. They did get the win, but man, they got their work cut out for them. They got some tough games coming up. I'm with you. I think we probably missed the mark on SMU, admittedly, as they were one of the early teams that we broke down in our previews. Yep. And going through that roster, I kind of did have some questions, but we didn't, because they were so early in our previews, we didn't really have anything to compare them to. So any other teams to compare them to. So we were kind of taking a shot in the dark there, and I think we might have missed that one just a little bit.
Yep. I think so too, Mason. SMU's they're gonna have a hard time. It's not looking great. Maybe they bounce back, but rough start against Nevada is a pretty rough look for your team going in the ACC this season. Mason, I think we about did it, man. I think this is about as good as our first live show of the year, I think, could have gone. We were going to talk about some of the biggest matchups of the year week by week. I think we sit on that. I think we saved that. I think we nailed it. Thank you, TriStar, for coming on the show. Guys, if you're watching this replay, plan on Tuesday nights, 7:30. The waiting room is going to open at 7:10. You'll see whatever video we've got to play for the week. I'm gonna try to fill that with highlights from the week before. We'll listen to music. We'll jam out. We'll drink some beer together. We're gonna have a really good time, college football style. But for tonight, we're gonna call it a night. Thank you all so much for tuning in. Don't forget about the Thursday betting show. If you're a gambler, you want to talk some college football gambling, that is the show for you. One of my favorites of the week. We're going to have a really good year betting. We've done all the homework on all the big teams. Go check out our videos list and all the deep dives that we've done. But until then, we're signing out for tonight. I'm Marcus. That's Mason. Thank you for watching the First and Long College Football Show. Everybody have a great day.